I'm Mike Barrell at the TM Forum Management World in Orlando, and I'm lucky enough to have Martin Creaner with me, who's straight off the stage. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Mike.
First question, you've just come off giving your view of the industry. Can you give me a rundown on what you've said, please?
So the biggest problem that the industry is facing, the biggest challenge it's facing at the moment is how do they generate new revenue to compensate for the ever-shrinking traditional revenue streams that telcos are comfortable with. And the main areas that people are looking at, I suppose they're looking at three different areas. Close to home, very close to home, is do more innovative things in terms of marketing and product bundling and pricing and so on in innovation. They're looking a little bit further from home at things like what are the opportunities around advanced content delivery services or location-aware services and so on to generate a complementary revenue stream, but still reasonably close to home. But they're also looking a long way away from home at things like e-health, smart grid, machine-to-machine, mobile payments and so on, which are all massive opportunities. But of course, very high potential opportunities have the biggest risk, and they've also got the biggest investment cost as well. And so one of the core topics of this show is, do telcos and service providers in general have a role in all of these new areas? Is there actually going to be a very nice niche where they can offer a value, where their core competencies can actually match a gap in what those services are? And that's one thing TM Forum is looking at very closely. And the idea behind this, I suppose, the idea that's been rumbling for about a year now, a year and a half, is where does the cloud play in all of this? And how do service providers become essentially cloud service brokers, cloud service enablers? One of the ideas that we're going to hear a lot about at this show is how do service providers take their crown jewels like their billing systems and their location database and their authentication systems and so on, and wrap them and put them in the cloud and allow them to be used by third parties in our existing industry, but also third parties in these other industries, in the healthcare and so on, in order to fill a gap in those value chains. My parting comment in there today was that in these increasingly complex value chains, it's a statement of the bloody obvious really, but in these increasingly complex value chains, you only get to play if you are valuable. And you don't get to play just because you have a network. You don't get to play just because you've got customer data. You get maybe a little role in there. The really interesting idea is how do the service providers make themselves more valuable so they become indispensable to these value chains? So that's really the theme of the conference.
As a conference, Martin, it's very different to the majority I attend in that you have one morning of keynotes and then everybody disappears off for the next 2 days in little rooms. Tell me what's going on and what's behind that game plan.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the TM Forum is an industry association. It's a not-for-profit industry association with a very strong standards and best practices role. And conferences like this, that's why it's very different to a big commercial conference. We're here actually trying to solve problems for our members, and the conference is the vehicle. But the conference isn't it's the means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And so we have big keynotes where we get some of the big ideas out there, but then we split into 4 or 5 parallel streams where you're going to hear detailed case studies where service providers and vendors are generally quite willing to open the kimono a bit and give a little bit more detail, let you look under the hood compared to what they would say in a normal commercial conference. We break up into small streams. We've got executive round tables, executive workshops where executives can share ideas and so on. So I think if you think of this conference as it's an industry association getting together to solve common problems as opposed to a commercial conference, that will explain why it structures itself differently. And actually, I'm biased, but I say why it's much more effective than any other conference.
Thanks a lot, Martin. I look forward to seeing the next 2 days evolve.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Pleasure.